Hi, Sir Lito. Good morning. Jess here with Danie, checking if you can hear us okay, sir.
Good day, you're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie, Laurel.
And I'm Jess Delos Santos. Here are today's top stories. Bangko Sentral Governor Felipe Medalla says a rate hike of up to 1 percentage point is possible before the year ends. Medalla says the BSP has to match the U.S. Federal Reserve, which is expected to deliver another big-time hike.
Finance Chief Ben Diokno concedes that a stronger agriculture sector is needed to hit the government's growth targets. Diokno says the sector must grow by up to 2%, but an economist believes that this could be a long shot.
Senate President Mig Zubiri says the chamber is confident of passing the 2023 budget by the third week of November.
And an infrastructure firm seeks a $25 million financing from the Asian Development Bank for the construction and operation of more than 300 telco towers in underserved areas in the country. We begin our broadcast with Bangko Sentral Governor Felipe Medalla signaling further tightening in step with another big-time rate hike expected to be delivered by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Medalla says domestic interest rates could rise by more than 100 basis points or even more before the year ends, depending on what the U.S. Fed will do. Medalla was reacting to Finance Chief Ben Diokno's statement that rates should increase by 1 percentage point before the year end. Now, over in the U.S., a hike of at least 75 basis points is expected on November 2nd. That's as policymakers continue to fight inflation. Medalla says the Bangko Sentral has to match the U.S. Fed's decision. This as the peso's continued weakness against the dollar is seen to further fan inflation, which accelerated to a 4-year high of 6.9% in September. The BSP has so far raised interest rates by 225 basis points to 4.25% this year.
The Finance Department is banking on remittances from overseas Filipino workers and receipts from the business process outsourcing industry this fourth quarter to support the peso. Finance Secretary Ben Diokno believes that the government could get an additional income of up to $16 billion from these two sources alone. Diokno also revealed that he has discussed the use of reserves to defend the peso with BSP Governor Felipe Medalla, but the finance chief says he does not know the exact amount for the budget. Diokno, who also formerly served as BSP governor, said that if it were up to him, the Bangko Sentral could use around $10 billion of fresh inflows to defend the currency. Now, this too from Finance Secretary Ben Diokno: a stronger agriculture sector is needed to attain the country's economic growth target. Diokno said the agriculture sector must grow 2 to 3% for it to make a significant contribution to the country's overall GDP. The government has set a GDP growth target of 6.5 to 8% for the next 5 years. According to the finance chief, agriculture has been a laggard in the economy and has been in and out of recession. For the past years, agriculture has only been contributing a tenth to overall GDP. The farm sector also declined for the second consecutive quarter this year due to lower production of crops and fisheries. And agriculture An agricultural economist says a 2 to 3% growth target for agriculture may be a long shot. According to Rolando D. of the University of Asia and the Pacific, calamities and high costs of fertilizers pose a challenge to the agriculture sector. Now, during the Mascara Festival over the weekend, the President acknowledged the long-standing woes of the sugar industry but did not elaborate any plans to alleviate the sector's problems. To find out what the sector needs to get out of this bitter problem, we have on the show Lito Coscoluella, Presidential Advisor of the Confederation of Sugar Farmers. Lito, good day. Thank you for joining us. Now, did you or any stakeholder get the chance to talk to the President over the weekend on the sidelines of the festival? Any commitments or assurances from President Marcos as to how to improve the sugar industry?
Good morning, everyone. No, we didn't have a chance to talk to the President about the sugar industry, but some representatives of the sugar industry did have a chance to meet him during one of the dinners. My understanding is not too much was discussed with regards to the problems of the sugar industry. More or less, the problem or the solutions needed were not strongly discussed. So we'll have to find ways to discuss the problems of the sugar industry at length with the President or with the Department of Agriculture.
Okay, now given all that as well, I mean, you have your group saying that the supply is stable for now, owing of course to the completion of imports from sugar orders number 2 and 3, plus of course the ongoing domestic operations. Nuance that for us a bit more. How stable exactly is stable? And up to when do you expect this to last? And beyond that, what should be done?
Well, we've had 2 sugar orders that authorize importation of sugar. The first was sugar order number 3 that authorized the importation of 200,000 metric tons, which has not yet been completed. The ones who were given the allocations have been given an extension that allows them to complete the importation by the end of this month or early next month. The second order, sugar order number 2 of the current crop year, authorizes the importation of 150,000 metric tons, and that will be completed by November 15. Given the peaking of the milling season at this time, the figures tell us that there will be adequate sugar supply for the next several months. Having said that, we do have to take a close look at the sugar supply demand situation sometime in April up to the end of the milling season or August of next year, because estimated production is about 1.8 to 1.9 million metric tons, while estimated demand is in the area of 2.4 million metric tons. So that's a shortfall, again, that we will have to meet. So there are many ifs and buts as far as the next several months are concerned. At this point in time, however, in answer to your question, yes, there will be adequate sugar supply to ease the supply shortage and to steady the prices. In fact, the mill gate prices for raw sugar have come down by about 400 to 500 pesos over the last 2 weeks. And that's an indication that there is adequate supply already.
Okay. Now, sir, can you take a step back a little bit, no? Because it's very hard to imagine that a country that produces so much sugar needs to be importing. Is this a short-term band-aid solution to, especially fighting inflation, perhaps driven by agricultural prices or, prices of fertilizer? Or is this something that you expect might be continuing for some time? And if so, how do you feel about importation of sugar?
Well, for one thing, we've lost about 25,000 hectares that were planted to sugarcane before.
Okay.
These 25,000 hectares have been converted either to commercial, residential purposes or other crops. Okay,
Okay.
so that's a large percentage of the sugar area that we've lost. Second, we have seen a drop in productivity. Last year, for example, we averaged more or less about 60 tons per hectare. In comparison to the industry's self-declared goal of 75,000 or 75 tons per hectare. There are many reasons for that drop in productivity. Number one is the weather. Weather has become very unpredictable. We've
Okay.
had to milk cane during the rainy season, and that is bad, of course, for the crop. The second reason is the rapid increase in the cost of inputs,
Right.
particularly fertilizer and fuel. So if we want to drive sugar production up within the next few years, we will have to take drastic measures. And these are exactly what the sugar industry is thinking of, but we will need concerted effort between the private sector and government. So far, unfortunately, we have not heard too much in terms of details about what government proposes to do to reduce the cost of fertilizer and fuel, which is a major part of our cost of production. So yes, we do have a lot of work cut out for us. And in answer to your final question, I think the reality is that over the next several years, we are going to have to import sugar.
Okay. Now, sir, you've pointed out some exogenous factors, no, that are not necessarily under the control. But what about sugar smuggling? Is this something that's causing as well the shortage of sugar and the prices of sugar to be exorbitant?
Well, that's the other strange thing about the current situation. We have not heard too much noise from the industrial users, the consumers, and institutional users about the shortage. They've complained about the prices, but I guess in response to the authorized importation, they prefer to stay quiet for the meantime. But if you remember, the Bureau of Customs apprehended about 76 containers of refined sugar that were declared as unauthorized.
Okay.
No? In other words, in simple terms, it's smuggled. The mere presence of smuggled sugar coming in through the Bureau of Customs indicates to us that some users have preferred to explore other sources, other than just the legitimate sources of sugar. This has always been a threat to the industry and to agriculture in general. Anti-smuggling operations have been supported by the sugar industry for many years, but it's becoming more and more difficult because of the cost involved. Anti-smuggling operations will have to be a comprehensive, concerted effort. It is not enough to stop the traffic at the Bureau of Customs. What we used to do was to obtain intelligence information that would tell us sugar was leaving the ports of Thailand. And we would then be informed as to whether that sugar had authority from the Sugar Regulatory Administration or not. And if it did not have the authority, then we would alert the Bureau of Customs on the possible entry. And we were thus able to contain the smuggling over the past many years. But this time, however, given the limitations of resources available to the sugar industry, we will have to expect more effort from the government in terms of stopping the smuggling. But again, as I said, it's not enough to just stop it at the Bureau of Customs. We have to stop it at source.
Okay.
Sir, can you clarify that for us? What do you mean exactly by limitation of resources here?
Well, the sugar industry used to spend quite a lot to finance our anti-smuggling operations. We had our own anti-smuggling intelligence operations that gave us the information. It's become too expensive for us to maintain this,
Like how
given the
much, if you have
production.
figures?
How's that?
If you have figures, like how much does it normally cost to actually continue this anti-smuggling operations?
Well, you have to retain a certain number of experts and intelligence personnel who will have a network of intelligence agents in various ports of entry and in the ports of exit. Okay, and you need to retain them on a monthly basis. So we're talking about millions of pesos.
All right. Sir, final question here. What should be the suggested retail price for sugar? You've got Kadiwa stores rolling out 70 per kilo, but of course, again, importation,
Right.
supposedly bringing down the prices, but then we do want to protect the farmers that have to deal with expensive input costs. What is an amenable price point, especially for our consumers as well?
At this point in time, I think somewhere between around 85 pesos per kilo. Given the current buying prices, Millgate of raw sugar, the prices, by the way, have come down over the last 2 weeks. I think we're down by about 500 pesos per bag.
Okay.
It had already approached 4,000. We're now looking at about 3,500. If you add all the costs, refining, shipping, hauling, handling, repacking, refining, and traders' margins, you're looking at somewhere around 85 pesos as a reasonable retail price. So when retail prices exceed that amount at this point in time, the DTI, or the Department of Trade and Industry, and the Department of Agriculture will need to ask those involved. The sad thing here is that it is not the producers who dictate the prices. We're price takers. The traders and the distributors and the retailers are the ones who decide how much the sugar will be paid for and how much it will sell for. When prices go above reasonable levels, the DTI normally gets on our backs, meaning the SRA, and asks why are prices too high, and then we get to the bottom of the problem. My suggestion is for the DTI and the DA to talk to all the traders, the distributors, and retailers, and ask them for receipts on how much their sugar costs them,
Okay.
and to justify retail prices in excess of what I mentioned. Because my suspicion is there could be some profiteering going on for the last several months.
All
Okay,
right.
some level of profiteering along the
again,
process.
Farm gate price versus retail price and how to bridge that gap. Thank you so much, Lito Coscoluella, Confederation of Sugarcane Farmers Presidential Advisors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Well, let's pause for a quick break, but coming right up after that. PLDT is set to construct a $75 million subsea cable link as it continues to expand its international cable network.
More of that and other stories when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
You're still watching Businessworld Live here in One News. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel.
The sardine canning industry has signed an agreement with the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources to ensure continued access to supply during the closed fishing season. The closed season runs from December to March in waters around Zamboanga Peninsula. The Canned Sardines Association of the Philippines, or CSAP, signed the Memorandum of Agreement with BFAR, allowing the sourcing of sardines from municipal fisherfolk during the closed season. BFAR says the MOA will also be implemented in Sorsogon, which also supplies tamban or herring to canneries in Manila. The agency adds that the MOA will also train municipal fisherfolk in proper fish handling, food safety standards, and processing technology.
Now, the Senate aims to pass its version of the proposed 5.268 trillion peso budget for next year by the third week of November. For the programs and spending plans of government agencies to ensure that the 4.9% increase in the budget is warranted. The Senate hopes to finish plenary debates by mid-November. The bicameral conference committee will then harmonize the two versions from both chambers of Congress before submitting it to the President for signature. The introduction of ads has raised concerns not only over subscription prices and waiting time, but as well as privacy.
Well, one company, however, is making sure that cheaper access to Netflix's catalog will not come at the cost of subscribers' personal information. More details from Madison Mills in this Bloomberg Quick Take.
Advertising is coming to Netflix, and that's one reason Integral Ad Science is partnering with the streaming platform to provide transparency around advertising viewership. We chat with their CEO to find out more. Lisa, thank you so much for making time for us. You are the CEO of Integral Ad Science. I know you work very hard to provide transparency to advertisers and marketers. How does IAS differentiate Netflix's offering to advertisers? Because there are a lot of competitors now, right? We've got Hulu, we've got Disney.
Us partnering with Netflix means we'll be providing transparency and helping marketers better understand that their ads were viewed, there was no fraud detected within the stream, and also helping them with the performance of their ad.
How does the transparency that your work provides to advertisers help the folks who are working with Netflix iterate on their advertising and creative offering?
I know there's no cord in my house, there's no cutting the cord. My whole family views always on stream content, and marketers want to connect with those users wherever they are in a streaming environment, but they want to make sure again that their ads were viewed by a human, that there's more transparency into where the ads ran within connected TV. I spend a lot of time with marketers, and I ask them frequently, what will it take to move more of your linear TV budgets over into connected TV? And they're just looking for similar transparency within a CTV environment, both in terms of premium platforms and then also within programmatic CTV inventories. Earlier this year, marketers, when they were running their ads in programmatic CTV, they only had visibility into which device and which app. They didn't have visibility into which show, which channel, which genre. Marketers, when it comes to social platforms, they've been asking the platforms, would you please open up your live feed for verification providers like IAS so that we can classify the inventory and determine, yes, this is brand safe and brand suitable.
An infrastructure firm is seeking a $25 million loan from the Asian Development Bank to build and operate around 380 telco towers in Visayas and Mindanao. According to documents uploaded by the ADB, Tiger Infrastructure Philippines is seeking financing for the development, construction, operations, and maintenance of telco towers in underserved areas. Tiger Infrastructure Philippines is a subsidiary of regional firm Tiger Infrastructure, which is a joint venture between a Danish investor and a Singaporean energy company. The Manila-based lender said it will provide long-term fixed-rate project financing on a portfolio-based approach. The project is currently at the pre-construction stage, which includes securing tower locations and local permits.
Now, more news from the telco space. PLDT is set to build a $75 million subsea cable link within Asia in a bid to expand its international cable network. Now, the company will begin its construction for the Philippine Link of Asia Direct Cable, or ADC, in Batangas. The ADC is expected to boost and diversify the Philippines' connectivity with the Asian region and advance the country's digitalization. PLDT aims to complete the 9,400-kilometer subsea cable link by the end of 2023, and once completed, the ADC will link 7 international cable landing points, namely those in the Philippines, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, and China.
And those are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front today. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. We are One News, all sides, all the time. But don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the local bourse when Businessworld Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here on One News. Now, Dan, the central bank, the finance chief, on defense mode here for the peso. That's expected to move the markets. Question is, which direction?
All right. Well, first of all, let's take a look at the peso and how that's moving. And you can see us strengthening a touch here. So, delivering that promise, we will not be breaking above 60, 58 spot 854. Let's see how much stronger we can go. Now, in terms of the markets, we do seem to be at least maintaining that sideways trading and still hovering above 6,000. So those are the magic numbers, 66,000 levels here. And of course, we are up by 0.04% in the past 3 days. Now, notably, just if you take a look at the best performing, we do have Wilcon Depot that's up by 1 8/10% as the best performer. Incidentally, they are set to release their third quarter earnings today. So far, what we've had is that they did announce they will be opening 8 stores by next year. So let's watch out for that and that earnings. Meanwhile, you've got PLDT as well in the news in terms of a lot of things going on in that space. However, that is down by 1.5%. So more to that point, just quick peek at the telco space. Here, of course, apart from what you've already reported, the subsea cables, you've also got the Philippine Star reporting that they may be raising its 2023 capital expenditures, especially after Pangilinan and Alpanlilio. The CEO did mention that they are struggling to stay within the year's target due to the strong dollar and the rising costs. 45% of PLDT's capex is dollar-based, Jess. And meanwhile, you've also got Globe in the news blocking 32.2 million scam and text messages in just 2 weeks after it implemented all of these, blocking of that spam text. So hopefully we'll be receiving less and less of those. Those two telco players really working hard to at least keep the cybersecurity up.
All right, seems to be a good day for the telco players so far, except of course for PLDT. Well, that's it for today, October 25, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for your free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream When You See Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. Stay safe, Philippines. We are One News, all sides, all the time.